This is Limited Engagement. Hey there, everyone. Thanks for listening to Limited Engagement. I'm your host for the show, Jared Duran, and this is LE97, which is the annual Best of Music discussion, which for this year, 2018, my partner in crime for said discussion is Ashley Naftule. We'll get to that in just a little bit here. Thank you to everybody who responded to the blarg last week, or the Hoot and Waddle weekly email and all that. Everything's fine. I just need a little break. So that's going to happen. This is the last one for the year, and it's going to be the last one for probably a few weeks at least. But much like James Bond, Limited Engagement will return. So probably the only time that this podcast could ever be compared to said franchise. And those of you playing repeated phrase bingo, apparently saying said before repeating something is going to be my repeated phrase for this introduction. Moving on. I love making these lists every year. It is music is a huge passion of mine, and I've actually been asked to do a film one for the first time, well, ever really, because of my involvement in the Phoenix Film Collective. So I have that to work on, and a few days to do so. But the music one, it's a lot of work, because I go through all of the albums that I've purchased. Now let's say the guidelines for this, right? And everybody's is a little bit different. My guidelines for doing the best of are they have to be albums that are released in 2018, and these are studio albums. These are not reissues, not compilations, not anything like that. No box sets. These are standalone studio albums released by that artist, brand new in this year, or the year that's being discussed. And I bought quite a few albums this year. Again, these are ones that made it into my collection. That's another criteria. It's not something that I have just streamed or anything like that. And let's see, how many did I have to go through this year? Let's take a look at that total. So that's 60 some odd albums that were ranked, and I went through all of them, ranked them out of 10, and it was something. And Ashley and I talk about this a little bit throughout the show, because there are some albums that I might have been a little down on since they'd been released, and that seem to stem from comparing these albums to other albums in the artist's catalog. So I did not factor that in. What I did was just compare them against each other. So for instance, the new Elvis Costello album that I took some issue with, that I had my problems with, that if I were comparing it to other releases in his back catalog may not necessarily rank terribly highly, although I have grown to appreciate it more on repeated listens. When I stacked it against other releases by other artists in 2018, it really rose towards the top. So things kind of flipped and flopped. And also, there's, this is not the nature of these lists is that the order of this can change. I have my favorite albums throughout the year, but the list can be pretty fluid. although the number one pick for me was pretty much solidly number one throughout all of that, but I'll leave that little bit of suspense to the listen. And yeah, so I mean, some of those numbers could flip-flop here and there, but like I said, I rated them out of 10, and in some instances, so if I had a whole bunch of things getting a specific, like a 7 or an 8 or whatever, then I went down into the decimal system, and I tried to only go out like one decimal place. But what I'm saying is I got really obsessive and nerdy with it. So basically, I just was myself in making the lists. And, feel free to take issue with whatever you want. If you have feedback, you can leave it at ltd.engagement@gmail.com, or you can, tweet at me, or, whatever, do all the social media things. What I'm planning to do is to go ahead and post the entire list from bottom to top, and that'll be on the blog that'll go out to accompany this, which may or may not be out the day the show comes out. It'll be pretty close. I may not actually get it done in time, but I'm taking it at a more leisurely pace and trying to enjoy some time off here over the holidays. So, but yeah, then we'll be back next year at some point. And in the meantime, if you would like to subscribe to the show, or follow us on the various social media platforms, all of which would be tremendously helpful. If you want to consider supporting this podcast and other Hoot and Waddle podcasts financially, then you can go over to patreon.com/Hoot and Waddle, and you can subscribe there, and there'll be a new exclusive podcast. We've got 2 exclusives up there already, plus the limited engagement archives of the first year will go up there soon, and there'll be a new Apocalyptic Popsicle for December. That's the exclusive podcast. I have to edit that and put that up. That's going to be the David Charlton book launch reading, which was great. But yeah, whatever. It's the end of the year. I don't see any need to drag this out much longer, so I won't. I'll just say that it was a blast talking to Ashley, which you can follow Ashley Naftule on Twitter at Emperor Norton, and he's somebody whose feed I get a kick out of all the time. So I would suggest doing that. You can catch him doing things at Space 55, and he's a freelance writer just getting published left and right, and it was a lot of fun talking to him, and I thank him for stopping by and doing that. And so we'll just roll right on into that conversation and see you on the other side. But we'll just start that. It was pretty crazy making the list this year.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked at just how much music there was. It was really good this year.
It was a ton of good stuff.
Also, a year there's like no obvious like number one. Like there's like not, there wasn't like that seminal album that everybody's gonna agree on this one record. Like it was kind of all
yeah
this year.
Yeah. Well, and as usual, I started reading lists, and I did not have much that matched anything. And despite the fact that everything I have purchased from 2018 is in this sitting right there.
Oh, nice.
That was released in 2018 anyway. There's a lot besides because I don't because I can't stop myself apparently.
Of course.
But yeah, I did. It was interesting. There were some that I thought were going to rank higher for me than they did this year, and they did not. I was just a little. I thought it was interesting. Things like and we'll see where they they actually. I think I'm just going to post the final list on, I don't know, as the blog or something like that. Probably. That's interesting. I think that's a good spot for that. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, I'm trying to think of how many are here. There's probably more than 50 at least. And I just ranked them straight down. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna just go straight through and compare everything to each other and see where it all shakes out. And yeah, I was kind of surprised by what was what. But let's, how do you make lists every year?
Oh yeah, every year.
Yeah.
I fail. Like, I'm not really a big fan of making them ranked. Like, I kind of like doing like alphabetical or just kind of random, just because it feels weird to be like, yes, this is the best record of the year. And
well, that was part of the difficult thing, right? Is that the stuff that either was like right at the top when I first listened to it had fallen down a little bit, or like I could make this list again tomorrow and it would be different what I decided to go ahead and pick for number one, or even the top 10 for that matter. I mean, it could totally change. It's kind of why I'm just gonna throw the entire list up at some point and just be like, I didn't purchase anything I did. Well, that's not true. I purchased very few things I actually disliked this year, and there are a handful of albums that I just didn't get to in time for them to make the cut. Yeah. So there's still some things out there, and I noticed I listened to a lot less hip hop this year than I did in the previous year. Not because there wasn't good stuff, but just because, I don't know, my head just wasn't in it this year.
That makes sense. There's some years where I'll be like, I'm not really into jazz from my mind, or like metal, for example, where I have to be in a very specific mood to listen to it. So some years you just kind of miss the genre.
Yeah. But I like the idea of having something that's just a list of favorites rather than something ranked, and I think that I'm veering more towards that as I get older. Which, happy belated birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm joining you this Saturday at 36. So
yeah, we'll go to a very undistinguished club.
Yeah. It's divisible by 3 and 6. Yeah, I don't know. But for all intents and purposes, it's middle age, right?
Basically,
because
40's like right around the corner.
Yeah, I highly doubt that I'm going to live far into my 70s. It just doesn't seem. I don't know. People live longer, for sure. People live longer than they should sometimes.
Considering the geopolitical situation we're in, yeah, I'd be surprised if anybody makes it to 70 right now. I don't want to be too grim about it, but it's just like
there's not a lot to be hopeful about right now.
Not at the moment.
I mean, it's whether I was just reading something about, and plus I saw First Reformed the other day, and I'm like, oh man, there's really nothing to be hopeful about. But I was reading something about how we're gonna have or have heavier El Nino cycles coming up because of the higher water temperatures. That we're going to see. I think they said something about wetter coasts and much drier and warmer north, and it'll be interesting.
Probably more intense forest fires too. So,
yeah, absolutely. Things are going to burn and go underwater, and it's a cheery way to open the show, I think.
That's right. Mad Max World's only a few years away, folks.
We're all doomed.
Start pimping your ride. Get the spike plates in the front of the car.
You know, as soon as we have to go into survivalist mode, I'm out. I'm done. If you take away my stuff, I got nothing to live for. So.